He suspected his housekeeper was stealing from him. For 3 weeks, he watched her sneak out with bags she did not bring in. Heavy bags. Suspicious bags. So one rainy Thursday night, he followed her, ready to catch her in the act. What he discovered left him completely speechless, because those bags were not filled with stolen goods. They were filled with soup, bread, vegetables, food she bought with her own tiny paycheck to feed homeless people his company had pushed onto the streets. And that was not even the real shock. The real shock came when he discovered who this woman truly was. A war hero who saved 17 lives under enemy fire. A mother who buried her daughter because she could not afford insulin. A woman who had loved him like her own son for 46 years while he never once asked her name. Stay, because what happens next will change how you see the people who serve you, the empires you build, and the price of being blind to grace. This is real. This starts now. 6:45 in the morning, Los Angeles. The Pacific Ocean stretched beneath the Malibu cliffs like liquid silver, waves crashing against rocks with the rhythm of a heartbeat that never stops. Keanu Reeves woke up the same way he had for 3 decades. No alarm, just instinct. The muscle memory of a man who built an empire from nothing and never learned how to rest. His Malibu penthouse was modest by Hollywood standards. No excessive luxury, no gaudy displays of wealth. Just clean lines, ocean views, and a garage full of motorcycles he built with his own hands. He was 58 years old now. Long dark brown hair past his shoulders, perpetually tangled. 3-day stubble that never quite became a full beard. Warm brown eyes that had seen too much loss and learned to hide it well. He pulled on faded blue jeans with a hole in the right knee. A black t-shirt so worn it had turned gray in patches. Boots that had walked more miles than most people drive in a lifetime. He looked like a man who slept under bridges. He looked like a man the world had forgotten. He looked exactly like himself. But beneath that humble exterior lived a billionaire. Film production, real estate development, investments that sprawled across Los Angeles like a spider web of steel and glass. Reeves Development Corporation owned half of downtown. His signature was on buildings that reshaped the skyline. His decisions displaced thousands of families every year, and he never thought twice about it. Because that was business. That was progress. That was how empires were built. He walked to the kitchen, expecting coffee to be ready. It always was. Every morning for 46 years, the same woman had been there before him. Quiet, faithful, invisible. Her name was Margaret Coleman, but everyone called her Maggie. She had been with his family since he was 12 years old. When his mother died of ovarian cancer, Maggie held him through the nightmares. When his father retreated into grief and alcohol, she kept the house standing. When his baby sister was stillborn and his girlfriend followed her into the grave, Maggie sat with him in the darkness and never asked him to speak. She loved him when no one else could. But Keanu never asked about her life, never wondered where she went at night, never thought to ask if she had dreams or sorrows or a story worth knowing. She was just there. Background noise in the symphony of his success, until 3 weeks ago. Keanu first noticed it on a Tuesday. He came home late from a meeting, exhausted, mind still churning with numbers and contracts and profit margins. The penthouse was dark. Maggie should have been gone hours ago. But through the window, he saw her, walking out of the building at 11 at night, coat pulled tight against the autumn chill, carrying 2 heavy bags. Bags she definitely did not have when she arrived that morning. He thought nothing of it, until it happened again. Thursday, same time, same bags. Monday, same pattern. Tuesday, again. His mind went dark. She is taking something. The thought settled into his chest like a stone. 46 years of trust, and now this. He ran an inventory check his office, his pantry, his safe, the artwork on the walls, the watches in his closet. Nothing was missing, but those bags kept appearing. And the question burned. What is she hiding? So on a rainy Thursday night, Keanu decided to follow her. He left his penthouse early. parked his vintage Norton Commando down the block, pulled on a leather jacket, waited in the shadows like a stranger watching his own life from the outside. When Maggie walked out at 7, coat pulled tight, bags weighing her down. Keanu's chest tightened. Tonight he would know the truth. She did not take a car, did not call a ride, just walked to the bus stop and waited in the rain like she had done it 1,000 times before. Keanu followed on his motorcycle, keeping distance, watching. The bus headed south, deep into neighborhoods his company owned, blocks he had renovated, streets where families used to live before Reeves development came through with buyout offers and eviction notices and promises of progress that never included the people who were already there. Maggie got off near Skid Row, the heart of Los Angeles homelessness, tent cities stretching for blocks, human beings sleeping on sidewalks while towers with his name rose in the distance. She turned down an alley behind an old church, paint peeling, windows dark, a forgotten building in a forgotten part of a city that only remembered the wealthy. Maggie knocked on a side door. Light spilled out. She disappeared inside. Keanu waited 5 minutes. Then he followed. The basement was full of people, homeless men with weathered faces, tired mothers holding children who should have been in warm beds, elderly veterans in worn jackets, kids in thin coats, shivering despite the warmth inside, all of them eating soup from paper bowls. And there was Maggie, hair down from its usual tight bun, old purple sweater instead of her work uniform, standing at a stove in the corner, serving food, calling people by name, smiling in a way Keanu had never seen. A young man stepped up to the counter. Tall, military jacket, haunted eyes that had seen combat. "Miss Maggie, you got any cornbread tonight?" "Made it fresh. Jimmy." She handed him 2 pieces wrapped in foil. "Extra butter, just how you like." The young man smiled. First real smile Keanu had seen on a face like that. A little girl tugged Maggie's sleeve. Maybe 7 years old. Big brown eyes. Dressed too thin for the weather. "Miss Maggie, where does all the food come from?" Maggie knelt down to her level. Her voice was gentle as morning light. "I make it with love, baby. So you grow strong." Keanu could not breathe. Those bags were not stolen. They were given. Maggie was using her own money, her small paycheck, to feed people who had nothing. People his company had pushed out. People who slept in alleys while he slept in penthouses. People who ate soup in church basements while he ate at restaurants where the bill exceeded their monthly income. She could have asked him for help. She had access to a billionaire every single day. But she did not ask. Because after 46 years, she had decided something about him. She did not trust him with her mercy. Keanu stumbled back up the stairs. Rain hit his face. He sat in his car for 2 hours, watching through the windshield as people came and went from that basement door. When Maggie finally emerged, bags empty, steps slow with exhaustion, Keanu rolled down his window. "Maggie." She turned. No surprise on her face, just quiet sadness, like she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "Get in." She did. They drove in silence through streets that glistened with rain. Then Keanu's voice cracked. "How long?" Maggie stared out the window at the city lights blurring past. 17 years. Since my daughter died." Keanu felt something twist in his chest. He remembered that funeral. He had sent flowers. Expensive ones. Never went himself. Never asked how Emily died. Never asked if Maggie was okay. "Why did you never tell me?" She looked at him then. Her eyes held 46 years of quiet observation. "What would you have done? Made it about you. Turned those people into your charity case so you could feel good about yourself." Her voice was soft, but the words cut like surgical steel. "I wanted them to stay human. Not your tax deduction." Something broke inside Keanu's chest. He drove her to a small house on the east side of the city. Modest? Well, maintained. The kind of place that spoke of careful saving and quiet dignity. He walked her to the door. Inside, through the window, he saw a frame on the wall. A military medal, bronze star, faded photograph of a young woman in desert camouflage. "What is that?" Maggie followed his gaze. That is my service medal. Desert Storm. 1991. Keanu stared at her. You served 3 tours. Combat Medic. The Bronze Star. That is for saving lives under fire. 17 soldiers. One night in Kuwait when everything went wrong. The woman who made his coffee every morning was a war hero. And he never knew. Before we continue, if this story is touching something in your heart, take a moment to subscribe. Hit that like button. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from, because this story found you today for a reason, maybe to open your eyes, maybe to heal something broken. Stay with me. What happens next will change everything. Keanu did not go home that night. He sat in his car outside Maggie's house until the sun started to rise over the Los Angeles skyline. The rain had stopped. The city was waking up, and all he could see was that medal on her wall. 17 lives. She had saved 17 lives under enemy fire, and he had never asked her a single question about who she was. When he finally drove back to his penthouse, the sun was breaking over the Pacific Ocean. The building let him in like it always did. Gates opening, lights adjusting, elevator waiting. But this time it all felt different. Cold, empty, like a machine pretending to be a home. Keanu stood at his window looking out at the skyline. His skyline. Buildings with his company name on the steel. Towers that reshaped neighborhoods. Developments that displaced thousands. But what had he really built? He thought about Maggie. 46 years. She had been there almost his entire life. He remembered being 12 years old, standing at his mother's funeral in a suit that did not fit right. His father was drinking again, could not even look at him. The grief was a weight too heavy for a child to carry alone. But Maggie was there, standing beside him the whole time, let him cry into her coat when no one else would hold him. Never told him to be strong. Just let him be broken. He remembered being 16, struggling with the guilt of surviving when so many people he loved had not. The house felt too big, too empty. His father was traveling, running from ghosts. Keanu sat alone in the kitchen at 2 in the morning, wondering if anything mattered. Maggie found him there, did not ask questions, just sat down, made him hot chocolate, and stayed until the sun came up. Told him he was going to be okay, told him grief was not weakness. Told him she believed in him. He remembered being 22, the night before he left for his first real film role. Nervous, terrified, wondering if he had made a terrible mistake chasing dreams instead of stability. Maggie packed his bags, ironed his shirts, and when he came downstairs with his suitcase, she hugged him tight and whispered, "Make me proud." And he had. He had built an empire, made hundreds of millions, put his name on half of Los Angeles. But he had never once asked if she was proud. Never asked what she needed. Never asked if she was okay. The realization sat in his chest like a stone that would never dissolve. Keanu heard the front door open, soft footsteps in the hallway. Maggie was here. Same time as always. Quiet, faithful. He turned from the window and walked toward the kitchen. She was setting out his breakfast, coffee, toast, fruit cut into perfect pieces. The same routine she had done for 46 years. But this morning, Keanu saw her differently. Her hands were thin, worn. Hands that had served soup to strangers last night. Hands that had saved lives in a war. Hands that had held him through every loss he had ever known. "Good morning, Mr. Reeves." Her voice was soft. She did not look up. "Maggie." She paused. Something in his voice made her glance at him. "Are you feeling all right, sir?" Keanu wanted to say so many things. He wanted to apologize, to explain, to ask her why she never told him, to ask her everything he should have asked decades ago. But the words caught in his throat. "I am fine, just did not sleep well." Maggie nodded, poured his coffee, set the cup down gently. And Keanu realized something that made his stomach turn. She was still calling him Sir, still moving carefully around him like he was someone to serve, not someone to trust. After everything, after raising him, after loving him, after holding his broken pieces together for 46 years. she still did not feel safe enough to be honest with him. He had done that, built that wall between them without even knowing it. Maggie turned to leave. Maggie. She turned back. Yes, Mr. Reeves. He looked at her, really looked, and saw a stranger, a woman with a whole life he knew nothing about, a hero the world forgot, a mother who buried her daughter, a soldier who bled for her country, and he had reduced her to someone who made his coffee. Thank you, he said, his voice breaking slightly, for everything. Maggie's face softened, just for a moment. Then she nodded. Of course, sir. She walked out, and Keanu stood there alone in his perfect kitchen, in his perfect penthouse, in his perfect empire, and felt like the poorest man alive. He pulled out his phone, opened his calendar, meetings, conference calls, investment reviews, development approvals. His whole day mapped out in 15-minute blocks. But none of it mattered. Keanu closed the calendar, opened his notes app, and typed one question. Who is Margaret Coleman? It was the first honest question he had asked in 46 years, and he had no idea what the answer would cost him. Keanu could not focus. He sat in his office on the 52nd floor, staring at a contract worth $40 million. The words blurred together. All he could think about was Maggie. His assistant knocked. Mr. Reeves, the investors from New York are on the line. Tell them I will call back. She blinked. But you scheduled this call 3 weeks ago. I said I will call back. She left quietly. Keanu leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. 17 lives. Maggie had saved 17 lives in a war, and he did not even know she had served. He opened his laptop, typed her name into the search bar. Margaret Coleman, Desert Storm, Bronze Star. A few generic military records came up. A list of Bronze Star recipients from 1991. Her name was there. Sergeant Margaret M. Coleman. But no story, no article, no recognition. The world had forgotten her. Just like he had. Keanu shut the laptop, grabbed his leather jacket, told his assistant he was leaving for the day. It is only 11:30, sir. I know what time it is. He drove east, back toward Skid Row. Back to that neighborhood he had only seen in development reports and profit projections. In daylight, it looked different. Older women sat on porches. Kids played in empty lots. A man fixed a car on the street. People lived here. Real people. Not statistics. Not obstacles to progress. Keanu parked near the church, the one with peeling paint and boarded windows. A sign out front read, Community Hope Center, all welcome. He walked around back. Down those same concrete steps, the basement door was unlocked. Inside, it was empty, quiet, just folding tables stacked against the wall and a small kitchen in the corner. The smell of soup still lingered in the air. Keanu stood there, trying to imagine Maggie in this space, serving food, smiling at strangers, calling them by name. Can I help you? Keanu turned. A young man stood in the doorway. Same military jacket from last night, same haunted eyes. Jimmy. I was just looking around. Jimmy studied him. Recognition flickered. You were here last night, standing in the doorway watching. Keanu nodded. You are the developer, right? The one who owns half the buildings around here. I am. Jimmy crossed his arms. So what are you doing here? Keanu did not know how to answer that. I am trying to understand something? Understand what? Maggie, the woman who runs this place. Jimmy's expression softened slightly. Miss Maggie does not run it. She just shows up, been coming every week for years. Feeds us, talks to us, treats us like we matter. How long have you known her? 3 years. Since I came back from Afghanistan. Jimmy's jaw tightened. I was living on the streets. Could not hold down a job. Kept having episodes. Flashbacks. Nobody wanted to deal with it. He walked over to the kitchen, touched the counter like it was sacred ground. Miss Maggie found me sleeping behind this church one night. Brought me soup. Did not ask questions. Just sat with me. Let me talk when I was ready. Keanu felt something twist in his chest. She got me into a program. Jimmy continued. Helped me find a place to stay. Checked on me every week. Still does. He looked at Keanu. She saved my life, and she did not have to. The words hung in the air. She saved 17 lives in the war, Keanu said quietly. Jimmy turned. What? In Desert Storm. She was a combat medic, saved 17 soldiers under fire, got the Bronze Star. Jimmy stared. She never told me that. She never tells anyone. They stood in silence for a moment. Why are you really here? Jimmy asked. Keanu looked around the basement, at the folding tables, the small kitchen, the handwritten sign that said, "All are welcome." Because I have known her my whole life, Keanu said, his voice cracking. And I just realized I do not know her at all. Jimmy watched him carefully. You are the one she works for, are you not? The family she has been with for decades. Keanu nodded. And you never asked? Never wondered about her life? No. Jimmy shook his head, laughed bitterly. Man, that is something. She gives everything to people like us. And the people she actually works for, the ones who could actually help her, do not even see her. The words hit Keanu like a fist. I see her now, Keanu said. Do you? Jimmy challenged. Or do you just feel guilty? Keanu did not answer, because he did not know. Jimmy moved toward the door, stopped. She comes every Thursday night, 7 o'clock. If you really want to understand, do not just visit once. Show up, stay, listen. He left. Keanu stood alone in that basement. The smell of soup, the stacked tables, the quiet. And for the first time in his life, Keanu Reeves felt small. Not because of what he lacked, but because of what he had never given. He pulled out his phone, opened his calendar. Thursday night was blocked with a gala. Investors, donors, speeches about urban development and corporate responsibility. Keanu deleted it. Typed in, Community Hope Center, 7 p.m. He did not know what would happen, but he knew he could not walk away. Not this time. Thursday came. Keanu left his office at 6:30. His business partner called twice. He did not answer. He drove east as the sun dropped below the skyline. The city lights flickered on. He parked near the church and sat for a moment, watching people arrive. Men in worn jackets. Women holding children's hands. Veterans with 1,000-yard stares. Everyone walking toward that basement door like it was the only warm place left in the world. Keanu got out, walked down those concrete steps, pushed open the door. Maggie was already there, setting up tables, arranging bowls. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore the same purple sweater and jeans from last week. She looked up when he entered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Mr. Reeves. Her voice was careful, guarded. I wanted to help, Keanu said. If that is okay? Maggie's eyes searched his face. Help? Wes. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Soup needs stirring. Pot is on the stove. Keanu moved to the small kitchen, picked up the wooden spoon. Stirred. People started filing in. Jimmy nodded at him but did not say anything. An older man with a cane sat down slowly. A mother with 2 kids found seats in the corner. Maggie moved between them like she had done this 1,000 times. Pouring soup, handing out bread, touching shoulders gently, asking quiet questions. How is your knee, Mr. Henderson? Still bothering me, Miss Maggie? I will bring you some cream next week. Keanu watched her. She knew everyone, remembered everything. You going to just stand there? Jimmy called from across the room. Keanu looked at Maggie. She handed him a stack of bowls. People are waiting. He took them, started serving. It felt strange at first, awkward. He did not know what to say. Did not know how to look people in the eye without feeling the weight of everything he had taken from them. But he tried. An older woman came through the line. Keanu ladled soup into her bowl. Thank you, baby, she said softly. You are welcome, she smiled, moved on. Keanu kept serving. One bowl, then another, then another. Halfway through, he noticed Maggie swaying slightly by the stove. She caught herself on the counter. Maggie. Keanu set down the ladle, moved toward her. I am fine. She straightened up, wiped her forehead. But she was not fine. Her hands were trembling. When is the last time you ate? Keanu asked quietly. I ate. When? She did not answer. Keanu looked at the soup pot, then at Maggie. She had made all of this, bought the groceries with her own money, cooked for hours, and had not saved anything for herself. "Sit down," he said. "There are still people." "Sit down, Maggie." Something in his voice made her listen. She sank into a chair by the wall. Keanu filled a bowl, brought it to her. "Set it down. Eat." Maggie looked up at him, and for the first time, he saw something in her eyes he had never seen before. Vulnerability. She picked up the spoon, ate slowly. Keanu went back to serving. Jimmy watched him with a look that was not quite trust, but was not hostility either. An hour later, the basement started to clear. People thanked Maggie on their way out, hugged her, told her they would see her next week. Keanu helped clean up, stacked chairs, washed bowls, wiped down tables. Maggie moved slower than usual. Her shoulders sagged with exhaustion. When everything was done, she pulled on her coat, picked up her empty bags. "I will drive you home," Keanu said. "You do not have to." "I know I do not have to. I want to." Maggie looked at him, then nodded. They walked to his car in silence. She got in. They drove through the dark streets. "Why did you come tonight?" Maggie asked quietly. Keanu kept his eyes on the road. "Because Jimmy told me if I wanted to understand, I needed to show up. Do you understand?" Keanu thought about that, about the people he had served tonight, the gratitude in their eyes, the way Maggie knew every single name. "I am starting to," he said. They pulled up to her house. Keanu turned off the engine. "You should have told me you were not feeling well," he said. "I am fine. You almost collapsed." Maggie looked out the window. "I have been tired before. I will be fine. When is the last time you saw a doctor?" She did not answer. "Maggie? 3 years?" she said finally. "Maybe 4. Keanu's chest tightened. "Why?" "Because doctors cost money, Mr. Reeves. And I had other people to feed." The words cut through him like broken glass. "The insurance I give you covers almost nothing," Maggie said, her voice soft but honest. "Basic checkups. Emergency room if I am dying. But tests, specialists, medicine I actually need." She shook her head. "I chose a long time ago where my money would go, and it was not going to be on me." Keanu sat there speechless. "You should go home," Maggie said gently. "It is late." She got out, walked to her door. Keanu sat in the car, hands gripping the wheel, watching the light in her window flicker on, and something inside him broke open. Not guilt this time. Resolve. He pulled out his phone, called his head of HR. "I need Margaret Coleman's insurance upgraded. Full coverage. Effective immediately." "Sir, it is almost 10 at night. I do not care what time it is. Get it done." He hung up, stared at Maggie's house. She had given everything, and he had given her nothing. That was going to change. Keanu could not sleep again that night. He kept thinking about what Maggie had said. 3 years, maybe 4, since she had seen a doctor, while he spent thousands on suits he wore once, cars he barely drove, art he never looked at. The next morning, Keanu called his doctor's office, made an appointment for Maggie. Full physical, blood work, everything. When Maggie arrived at his penthouse that afternoon, he was waiting. "Maggie, I need you to do something for me." She set down her bag. "Of course, Mr. Reeves. I made you a doctor's appointment. Tomorrow at 10. She went still. "I do not need." "Yes, you do. Mr. Reeves, I appreciate the thought, but it is not a thought. It is happening." His voice was firm. "I have already upgraded your insurance. Full coverage, no co-pays, no limits." Maggie stared at him. Something shifted in her expression. Not gratitude. Something harder. "Why now?" she asked quietly. "What? Why now, Mr. Reeves? I have worked for you for 46 years. And suddenly you care about my health." The words hung between them like an accusation. Keanu felt his throat tighten. "Because I did not know. You did not ask." The truth of it landed like a weight on his chest. Maggie picked up her bag. "I will go to the appointment, but not because you are telling me to. Because I need to keep doing what I do. And I cannot do that if I collapse." She walked past him toward the kitchen. Keanu stood there, feeling the distance between them grow even as he tried to close it. Over the next few days, Keanu started spending more time at home, working from his study instead of his office, watching Maggie move through the penthouse with that same quiet efficiency she had always had. But now he noticed things he had never seen before. The way she paused at the top of the stairs, catching her breath. The way she gripped the counter when she thought no one was looking. The way her hands shook slightly when she poured his coffee. She was in pain, and she had been hiding it for years. Wednesday evening, Keanu found her in the kitchen. She was packing containers. Soup, bread, vegetables. "You are going to the center tonight?" he asked. "I go every week. Let me help." Maggie did not look up. "You helped last week." "I want to help again." She stopped, set down the container, turned to face him. "Mr. Reeves, I do not know what you are trying to do. But whatever this is, this sudden interest in my life, it does not change anything." "What do you mean?" Her eyes met his. Clear, unflinching. "I have been invisible to you for 46 years. You did not wonder where I lived, what I needed, if I was okay. And I made peace with that. I found my purpose outside of this place, outside of you." Oh, each word was quiet but sharp. "But now you follow me. Show up at the center. Upgrade my insurance. Make doctor appointments." She shook her head. "And I am supposed to be grateful. I am trying to make things right." "You cannot." Maggie's voice cracked slightly. "You cannot undo 46 years, Mr. Reeves. You cannot erase the fact that you saw me every single day and never once thought to ask if I was all right, if I was lonely, if I was hurting." Keanu felt something break inside his chest. "I raised you," Maggie continued, her voice trembling now. "I held you when you cried, fed you when you were hungry, sat with you in the dark when the grief was too much. I loved you like my own son." Tears gathered in her eyes. "And you never even learned my middle name." The silence that followed felt like it could swallow the world. Keanu wanted to say something. Anything. But what could he say? She was right about all of it. "I am sorry," he whispered. Maggie wiped her eyes, picked up the containers. "I need to get to the center. Let me drive you." "No." "Maggie." "No, Mr. Reeves." She looked at him one more time. "You want to help, really help. Then stop trying to fix me. Stop trying to fix your guilt. And start looking at what you have actually built. Because it is not just me you have been blind to." She walked out. Keanu stood alone in the kitchen. The penthouse felt massive around him. Cold. Empty. He walked to the window. Looked out at the city. His city. The towers with his name. The skyline he had reshaped. And for the first time, he saw it differently. Each building was a neighborhood erased. Each tower was families displaced. Each profit margin was people pushed out of homes they had lived in their whole lives. He pulled out his phone, opened the files for the Eastside Community Project, the one he had just closed, the one displacing 600 families. He started reading the reports, really reading them. Family profiles, income levels, how long they had lived there, where they would go when his company took their buildings. One report stood out. An elderly man named Robert Henderson lived in the same apartment for 40 years. Veteran, disabled. The buyout Reeves development offered would not even cover 6 months' rent anywhere else. Keanu scrolled down. Another name. Sarah Mitchell. Single mother, 3 kids, working 2 jobs. Losing her apartment meant pulling her kids out of school, moving an hour away from her jobs. Another, and another, and another. 600 families, 2,000 people, real names, real lives, real loss. And Keanu had signed off on it without thinking twice. He sat down, put his head in his hands. Maggie was right. He had not just been blind to her, he had been blind to everyone. Thursday morning, Keanu's phone rang. "Miss Reeves, this is Dr. Patricia Reynolds from Sitters, Sinai. You are listed as the emergency contact for Margaret Coleman." Keanu's stomach dropped. "Is she okay?" "She is stable, but she collapsed during her appointment yesterday. We admitted her for observation." Keanu was out the door before the doctor finished talking. He found her in a private room on the 4th floor. She was asleep, IV in her arm, monitors beeping softly beside the bed. Keanu sank into the chair next to her. His hands were shaking. Dr. Reynolds came in 20 minutes later. Young, kind eyes. She pulled up a chair. Mr. Reeves, I am not her son. I am her employer. Dr. Reynolds paused, nodded. Margaret has advanced diabetes. Her kidneys are showing early damage. Her blood pressure is dangerously high, and she is severely anemic. Keanu felt the room spin. All of these conditions are treatable, Dr. Reynolds continued, but they have gone unmanaged for years. She told me she has not seen a doctor in over 3 years. I know. She needs medication, specialist care, regular monitoring. The doctor looked at him directly. Her previous insurance would not have covered most of this. She would have had to pay out of pocket, probably $400 to $500 a month, maybe more. Keanu closed his eyes. She was choosing between her health and something else. Doctor, Reynolds said softly, do you know what that was? Keanu nodded. Feeding people who had nothing. The doctor was quiet for a moment. She is a remarkable woman. I know. Dr. Reynolds stood. She will need to stay here for a few days. We are getting her stabilized. But Mr. Reeves, she cannot keep living the way she has been. Her body will not take it. She left. Keanu sat beside Maggie's bed, watched her breathe, and he cried. He cried for the boy she had raised, for the man he had become. For 46 years of not seeing her, not asking, not caring, Maggie stirred, her eyes opened slowly. Mr. Reeves, I am here. She looked at the IV. The monitors. I am sorry, I did not mean to. Stop. Keanu's voice broke. Stop apologizing. She went quiet. Keanu leaned forward. His voice was raw. Your middle name is Marie. I looked it up last night. Margaret Marie Coleman. Born in 1954 in Birmingham, Alabama. You joined the Army at 19. Served 3 tours. Came home to a country that did not know how to thank you. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. You had a daughter named Emily. She died at 28 from diabetes complications because she could not afford insulin. His voice cracked. And for 17 years, you have been feeding strangers with money you should have been spending on yourself. Because no one else would. Maggie turned her head away. I gave you the cheapest insurance I could find. Keanu whispered. I paid you fairly, but I never thought about what fair actually meant. I never asked if you could afford your medicine, your rent, your life. He put his head in his hands. I have spent 46 years taking your time, your love, your sacrifice, and I never once gave you anything that mattered. You gave me a job, Maggie said softly, a purpose. I gave you scraps. Keanu looked up at her. And you turned them into grace. You turned my indifference into love for people I was too blind to see. Tears ran down Maggie's face. I do not deserve your forgiveness, Keanu said, but I am asking anyway. Because I need to change, not just how I treat you, how I treat everyone. Maggie reached out, took his hand. Her fingers were thin and weak, but her grip was firm. Keanu? She said his name, his actual name. For the first time in 46 years, I forgave you a long time ago. Why? Because holding on to anger would have poisoned me, and I had too many people counting on me to let that happen. She squeezed his hand. But forgiveness does not mean things stay the same. It means you have a chance to do better. Keanu nodded. I will. I promise. Then start with this. Maggie looked at him with clear eyes. Stop trying to save me. I do not need saving. I need a partner. Someone who sees what I see. Who cares about what I care about? The people at the center, Keanu said. The people everywhere, Maggie replied. The ones your buildings push out. The ones your deals forget. The ones who work for you but cannot afford to live near you. Her words landed like stones. I have watched you build an empire, Keanu, and it is impressive. It really is. But empires built on other people's loss do not stand forever. They crumble. And when they do, all you are left with is money and an empty house. Keanu felt the truth of it in his bones. So if you want to change, Maggie said, her voice gentle but firm. Then change what you are building. Not just for me, for everyone. Keanu sat there, holding her hand, feeling the weight of 46 years pressing down on him, but also feeling something else, hope. Not the kind that erases the past, the kind that makes the future possible. Okay, he whispered. Okay. Maggie closed her eyes, exhausted but peaceful. Keanu stayed beside her bed until she fell asleep. Then he pulled out his phone, opened his calendar, cleared the next 2 weeks, made a call to his lead attorney. The Eastside Community Project. I want every family we are displacing contacted personally. I want to know their names, their stories, where they are going, what they need. Keanu, this will take months. Then we take months. Silence on the other end, and I want a meeting with the board. Next week, I am restructuring how we develop. Restructuring how? Keanu looked at Maggie sleeping peacefully, her face softer than he had ever seen it. We are going to build with people, not on top of them. He hung up, sat back in the chair, and for the first time in his life, Keanu Reeves felt like he was finally waking up. Maggie stayed in the hospital for 5 days. Keanu visited every morning and every evening, brought her books, sat with her in silence, learned things he should have known decades ago. Her favorite color was purple. She loved old gospel music. She had always wanted to visit the ocean, but never had the money. Small things, human things. On the 6th day, Maggie came home. Keanu had already arranged everything. A nurse to check on her daily, medications delivered, a schedule of follow-up appointments. But Maggie did not go back to work. For the first time in 46 years, Keanu's penthouse felt empty without her. Thursday came. 7 o'clock. Keanu drove to the center alone. When he walked in, Jimmy was setting up tables. He looked up, surprised. Where is Miss Maggie? She is recovering. Doctor's orders. Jimmy's face tightened with worry. Is she okay? She will be, but she needs rest. Keanu picked up a stack of chairs, started helping. Jimmy watched him for a moment, then nodded. People started arriving. Keanu served soup, handed out bread, tried to remember names the way Maggie did. An older man came through the line, thin, gray beard, leaning heavy on a cane. Keanu recognized him from the reports. Robert Henderson. Evening, Keanu said, filling his bowl. Mr. Henderson nodded, took his soup to a corner table, sat down slowly like his bones hurt. Keanu's hands went cold. This was the man, the one from the development files. 40 years in the same apartment, displaced by Reeves Development. Offered a buyout that would not cover 3 months' rent anywhere else. Keanu set down the ladle, walked over. May I sit? Mr. Henderson looked up, studied him. Free country. Keanu sat. His throat felt tight. I am Keanu Reeves. Henderson's expression did not change. He just kept eating his soup. I know who you are. The words were quiet. Not angry, just tired. You bought my building, Mr. Henderson said. 2 years ago. Said you were going to renovate. Make it better. And you did. New windows. Fresh paint. Real nice. He took another spoonful of soup. Then you raised the rent from $800 a month to $2,300. Gave us 60 days to leave or sign a new lease we could not afford. Keanu could not breathe. I lived there 40 years. Mr. Henderson continued, his voice steady. Raised my son in that apartment. Buried my wife from that apartment. Every morning I would sit by that window and watch the sun come up over the city. 40 years. He looked at Keanu. Now I sleep in a shelter. Or here, when they let me. Because the buyout you gave me, $12,000 for 40 years, ran out in 6 months. Keanu felt tears burn his eyes. I am sorry, he whispered. Mr. Henderson set down his spoon. You sorry? Or you just feel bad now that you got a face to the name? The question cut clean through. Both, Keanu said, his voice breaking. Mr. Henderson studied him. You know what the worst part is? It was not even personal to you. You probably signed that deal without thinking twice. Just another building. Just another number. You are right. I know I am right. Mr. Henderson leaned back. I was somebody before your company came. Had a home. had dignity. Now I am just another old man with a cane eating free soup in a church basement. The basement had gone quiet. People were watching. "You cannot fix this with money," Mr. Henderson said. "You can write me a check right now, and it will not change the fact that you looked at my life and decided it was worth less than your profit margin." Each word landed like a hammer. Keanu looked at him. This man who had lost everything. This man whose home he had taken without a second thought. "You are right," Keanu said. "I cannot fix it, but I can stop doing it. I can change how we build. I can make sure no one else loses their home the way you did." "I'm a street." Henderson's eyes narrowed. "Words are cheap, Mr. Reeves." "I know. So let me prove it." Keanu's voice was raw. "Come work with me. Help me understand what I have been too blind to see. Tell me how to build without destroying. Because I do not know how. And I need someone who does." Mr. Henderson stared at him. Jimmy stepped forward. "You serious?" "Yes. You are going to let a homeless man tell you how to run your billion-dollar company." "He is not homeless. He is a man I made homeless." Keanu looked at Mr. Henderson. "And he knows more about what this community needs than I ever will." The basement was silent. Mr. Henderson picked up his soup, took a slow sip, set it down. "I will think about it." It was not a yes, but it was not a no. Keanu nodded, stood, walked back to the kitchen. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. Jimmy came over, stood beside him. "That took guts," Jimmy said quietly. "That was the truth." "Yeah, but most people with power do not tell the truth. They make excuses." Keanu looked at him. "I am done making excuses." Jimmy nodded slowly. "Then maybe, just maybe, you are actually serious about this." They finished serving in silence. When the night ended and everyone left, Keanu sat alone in the empty basement. The smell of soup, the stacked chairs, the quiet. He thought about Mr. Henderson. 40 years gone because Keanu signed a paper without thinking. How many others were there? How many lives had he reshaped without ever knowing their names? He pulled out his phone, called his assistant. "I need the full list of every property Reeves Development has acquired in the last 10 years, and I need the displacement records. Every family, every person. I want names. Sir, that is going to be thousands of files. I do not care how many it is. I need to see them. All of them." He hung up, sat in the silence, and made a promise to the empty room. To Mr. Henderson, to Maggie, to every person his empire had forgotten. He would see them, every single one, and he would do better, not because it was profitable, because it was right. Keanu did not sleep that night. He sat in his study with his laptop open. Files spread across the desk. Names, addresses, buyout amounts, displacement dates, 10 years of development, 43 buildings acquired, over 2,000 families relocated. He started reading. James Patterson, age 62, lived in his apartment 28 years. Worked as a janitor at the same school his grandkids attended. Buyout $14,000. Current status, moved 2 hours outside the city, lost his job. Cannot see his grandkids anymore. Keanu sat back, closed his eyes, kept going. Sarah Mitchell, single mother, 3 kids, worked 2 jobs, one as a nurse's aide, one cleaning offices at night. Displacement forced her to pull her kids from school, move to a smaller place farther from her jobs. She now spends 4 hours a day on buses just to get to work. Keanu's hands shook. He kept reading. Name after name, story after story. A young couple who had saved for 3 years to afford their first apartment. Gone in 60 days. An elderly woman who had lived in the same building since 1972. Died 6 months after being displaced. Her daughter wrote in a complaint letter that she never recovered from losing her home. Keanu read that letter 3 times. Then he put his head down on the desk and wept. Hours passed. The sun rose. Keanu did not move. His phone buzzed. A text from his business partner. Board meeting in 2 hours. You ready? Keanu stared at the message, then at the files covering his desk. He was not ready. He would never be ready, but he had to face them anyway. He showered, put on his usual clothes. Faded jeans with a hole in the knee, black t-shirt, leather jacket. Did not bother with anything fancier. The boardroom was full when he arrived. 8 men and women in expensive suits. People who had helped him build his empire. People who trusted his vision. Keanu stood at the head of the table. I am restructuring how we develop. No preamble, no small talk. His CFO leaned forward. Keanu, we talked about this. You cannot just... I spent last night reading displacement records. 2,000 families in 10 years. People who lost their homes because we decided their neighborhoods had potential. His voice was steady but raw. We have been calling it development, but it is not. It is extraction. We take land from people who cannot afford to fight back. We build things they cannot afford to live in, and we call it progress. The room went silent. I met a man this week, Keanu continued, Robert Henderson, 70, 3 years old. We bought his building 2 years ago. Displaced him after 40 years. The buyout we gave him ran out in 6 months. Now he sleeps in a shelter. His business partner shifted uncomfortably. Keanu, that is unfortunate. But it is not unfortunate. It is intentional. Keanu's voice rose. We knew what would happen. The projections showed it. 60% of displaced residents would be priced out of the surrounding area. We saw that data, and we moved forward anyway, because it was profitable, his CFO said. That is how business works. Then maybe we are in the wrong business. The room erupted. People talking over each other. Arguing. Questioning his judgment. Keanu let them. Then he raised his hand. The room quieted. I am proposing we build differently. Mixed-income housing, community ownership models, hiring locally, profit sharing with long-term residents. We will still be profitable, just not at their expense. This will cut our margins by 40%, his CFO said. I do not care. The investors will pull out. Then we find new investors. His business partner stood. Keanu, what has happened to you? Keanu looked at her. I woke up. To what? To the fact that I have spent decades building monuments to myself on top of other people's lives. And I cannot do it anymore. She stared at him. This is not sustainable. Neither is what we have been doing. Not for the people we displace, not for this city, and not for my soul. The word hung in the air. Soul. Not a word anyone used in boardrooms. I am moving forward with this, Keanu said quietly. With or without your support. But I am asking you to trust me one more time. Long silence. Finally, one board member spoke up. Older woman. Been with the company since the beginning. I will support it. Keanu looked at her, surprised. Your grandfather trusted people, she said. Trusted the crews he worked with. Trusted the communities he built in. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. Maybe it is time we remembered. Another board member nodded. Then another. Not everyone. 2 members shook their heads and left the room. But 5 stayed. It was enough. Keanu's business partner looked at him. You are sure about this? I have never been more sure of anything. She sighed. Then let us figure out how to make it work. The meeting lasted 4 hours. Plans were drawn up. Budgets recalculated. Timelines extended. When it ended, Keanu drove straight to Maggie's house. She answered the door in a robe. Looking stronger than she had in the hospital, but still tired. Mr. Reeves, is everything okay? I just came from a board meeting, Keanu said. We are changing everything. How we build, how we develop. I am restructuring the entire company. Maggie studied his face. And I need your help. I need you to be part of this. Not as my employee, as my partner. Community Relations Director, full salary, full benefits, a seat at every table. Maggie was quiet for a long moment. Why me? Because you see people I have spent my whole life ignoring. Because you have been doing this work for 17 years while I built towers. Because if I am going to do this right, I need someone who actually knows what right looks like. And because Keanu's voice cracked. You are the only person who loved me enough to keep serving people, even when I did not deserve it. You showed me what grace looks like. Now I am asking you to help me live it. Maggie reached out. touched his face gently. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Keanu felt something break open in his chest. Not pain this time. Relief. Purpose. Hope. Thank you, he said. Maggie smiled. Do not thank me yet. This is going to be hard. Changing is not comfortable, and people will not trust you right away. I know. But if you are serious, really serious, then we can do something beautiful. Keanu nodded. I am serious. She looked at him with those eyes that had seen everything, that had watched him grow up, that had never stopped believing he could be better. Then let us get to work. 3 months later, Keanu stood in front of the city council. Same room where he had presented the East Side Community Project. Same council members who had applauded his $340 million deal, but everything else was different. I am here to present a revised proposal, Keanu said. East Side Commons. A community-centered development built with residents. Not on top of them. He clicked to the first slide. But instead of profit projections, there were faces, names, stories. This is Robert Henderson, 73 years old, displaced by my company 2 years ago. He is now our community advisory director. He is helping us redesign this project from the ground up. Mr. Henderson sat in the front row. Nodded once. This is Sarah Mitchell. Single mother, 3 kids. We displaced her family 18 months ago. She is now our family services coordinator, making sure no family loses their home without real support and options. Sarah sat next to Mr. Henderson. Her eyes were wet, but her chin was high. Keanu continued. The new East Side Commons will be 40% affordable housing, 30% workforce housing, 30% market rate. Every displaced family has been offered first right to return, not as tenants, but as partial owners. The council members leaned forward. We are hiring locally, training programs for construction jobs, microloans for small businesses, a community center with free programs run by the people who live there. He paused. This project will take longer, cost more upfront. And yes, our profit margins will be smaller, but we will be building something that lasts, something that serves. One council member raised her hand. Mr. Reeves, this is a significant departure from your previous model. Yes, ma'am. What changed? Keanu looked at Maggie, sitting quietly in the back row. I did. The vote was unanimous. Approved. When Keanu walked out, Mr. Henderson was waiting. You did good in there, the old man said. We did good. Keanu corrected. Mr. Henderson smiled. First time Keanu had ever seen it. Yeah, we did. Over the next few months, something remarkable happened. Keanu started showing up, not just at board meetings, not just at galas, but at the places that mattered. Every Thursday, he was at the center, serving soup, learning names, listening to stories. Every Monday, he met with the Community Advisory Board, residents who had been displaced, now helping reshape how Reeves development built. Jimmy was hired as Director of Veteran Services. He designed programs that helped former soldiers find jobs, housing, mental health support. Mr. Henderson brought in other longtime residents, people who knew the neighborhood's history, who understood what the community needed, and Maggie. She was everywhere, connecting people, building trust, showing Keanu how to see what he had been missing his whole life. One evening, Keanu and Maggie sat in the church basement after everyone had left. You know what is different now? Maggie asked. What? You ask questions you used to tell people what they needed. Now you ask them. Keanu nodded. I am learning. You are doing more than learning. You are changing. She looked at him. I am proud of you. The words hit Keanu like a wave. He had built an empire, made hundreds of millions, reshaped a city, but he had never heard those words before. Thank you, he whispered. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Maggie spoke again. My daughter Emily, before she died, she used to volunteer at a soup kitchen, said it was the only place she felt like herself. Anu listened. After she passed, I did not know what to do with the grief. It was everywhere, choking me. So I started coming here, started cooking, started serving. She smiled softly. And I found her again, in the faces of people who needed help, in the quiet joy of giving without expecting anything back. She turned to Keanu. That is what I want for you. Not guilt, not obligation, but the joy of being part of something bigger than yourself. Keanu felt tears on his face. I am starting to feel it. Good. Because what we are building, it is not about fixing the past. It is about creating a future where people matter more than profit, where dignity is not negotiable. We are going to make mistakes, Keanu said. Of course we are. But we will make them together, and we will learn from them. 6 months after that board meeting, ground broke on East Side Commons. But it was not like other groundbreakings Keanu had attended. No politicians posing for cameras. No champagne. No speeches about economic growth. Just people. Families who were coming home. Kids playing in the dirt. Elderly residents planting seeds in what would become community gardens. Jimmy stood with a group of veterans, talking about the jobs program they would be starting. Mr. Henderson walked the property with Keanu, pointing out where the original neighborhood landmarks had been. My apartment was right there. That is where the sun came through the window every morning. We will make sure you get that same view, Keanu said. I promise. Mr. Henderson looked at him. You know what? I believe you. Sarah's 3 kids ran past, laughing. She called after them, then turned to Keanu. Thank you for giving us a chance to come back. You are not coming back as guests, Keanu said. You are coming back as owners. This is your home. Thus she hugged him, and Keanu, who had spent 58 years avoiding emotional connection, hugged her back. As the sun set over the construction site, Maggie stood beside Keanu. This is good work, she said. It is a start. It is more than a start. It is a transformation. Keanu looked at the families around them, talking, laughing, planning, hoping. For the first time in his life, he understood what he had been chasing all these years. Not power, not wealth, not buildings with his name on them. Connection, purpose, grace. I wish I had learned this 46 years ago, Keanu said quietly. Maggie took his hand. You learned it when you were ready. And that is all that matters. They stood together as the sky turned gold, then pink, then purple, and Keanu felt something he had never felt before. Peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because he was finally building something worth building. Something that would last, not monuments to himself, but homes for people who deserved them. 18 months later, East Side Commons opened. Not with a ribbon-cutting ceremony, with a block party. Tables stretched down the street. Music played from speakers someone's nephew had set up. Kids ran between the buildings. New buildings with big windows and front porches where people could sit and watch the sun rise. Keanu stood at the edge of it all, watching. Jimmy walked over, hand in hand with a woman Keanu had met a few months back. Mr. Reeves, this is my fiancée, Rachel. Keanu shook her hand. Congratulations. Jimmy told me what you did, she said, giving him a chance when no one else would. He gave me a chance, Keanu said. Taught me how to see. Jimmy smiled, walked off with Rachel toward the food tables. Mr. Henderson sat on a bench in front of his new apartment. Same view he had had 40 years ago. Same sunrise every morning. He waved. Keanu waved back. Sarah's kids were playing basketball on the new court. She stood watching them, arms folded, peace on her face. When she saw Keanu, she mouthed, "Thank you." He nodded. Maggie walked up beside him. She looked stronger now, healthier. Her silver hair caught the afternoon light. You did it? She said softly. We did it. Yes, we did. They stood together, watching the community celebrate. People who had been scattered were home. Families who had been broken were whole. And in the center of it all was something Keanu had never built before. Belonging? I was thinking about something, Keanu said. About that night I followed you, when I expected to find a thief. Maggie looked at him. I was so sure you were taking something from me. But the truth is, you had been giving me everything my whole life, and I just could not see it. His voice cracked. You loved me when I was unlovable, served me when I was blind. And when I finally opened my eyes, you did not walk away. You stayed. You helped me become someone worth being. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. I do not know if I will ever be the man you believed I could be. Keanu continued, but I am trying every day. Because of you. Maggie took his hand. Keanu, you already are. A little girl ran up. Lily, the one from the church basement. She was taller now. Smiling. Miss Maggie, come see our new apartment. We have 2 bedrooms and a kitchen with a window. Maggie laughed. I will be right there, baby. Lily ran off. Keanu looked at Maggie. You know what I realized? I spent 58 years building things I could see from the top floor. Towers, skylines, monuments. He gestured to the families around them. But this, people with homes, kids with hope, veterans with purpose. You cannot see this from up there. You can only see it when you come down. When you get close enough to look people in the eye. Maggie squeezed his hand. And now you see. Now I see. The sun was setting. Gold light spilled across the new buildings. The community garden. The playground where children laughed. Maggie started walking toward Lily's family. Then stopped. Turned back. Keanu? Yeah. Welcome home. She walked away, and Keanu stood there, feeling the weight and wonder of those 2 words. Welcome home. He had spent his whole life in penthouses and towers, surrounded by luxury and achievement. But he had never been home. Not until now. Not until he learned that home is not a place you own. It is a place where you belong. Where people know your name. Where your presence matters not because of what you have, but because of who you are. Keanu walked into the crowd, shook hands, hugged children, listened to stories. And somewhere in the middle of it all, surrounded by people he had once ignored, in a neighborhood he had almost destroyed, Keanu Reeves finally understood what his life was for. Not to build higher, but to lift others up. Not to take more, but to give everything. Not to be seen, but to see. He looked up at the sky, the same sky that covered his penthouse 52 floors up. But from down here, it looked different, closer, warmer. Like grace bending low enough to touch the broken places, and Keanu whispered a prayer he had never prayed before. Thank you. For Maggie. For second chances. For eyes that finally see. The prayer was simple, honest, real. Just like the life he was learning to live. A life where wealth was not measured in buildings, but in people who felt seen. Where success was not counted in profits, but in families who had homes. Where legacy was not carved in steel, but written in the hearts of those who had been loved when the world forgot them. Keanu Reeves had spent 58 years building an empire. Now, finally, he was building something that mattered. A community, a family, a home. And as the stars came out over East Side Commons and music filled the air and children danced in streets that used to be forgotten, Keanu knew this was what he had been searching for his entire life. Not power, love, not monuments, people, not his name on a building, but his heart in a place that would remember him long after the towers fell. This was grace. This was home. This was enough. Because in the end, the measure of a life is not what you build for yourself. It is what you build for others. Not the walls you raise, but the walls you tear down. Not the people you impress, but the people you see. Maggie taught Keanu that true wealth is not counted in dollars. It is counted in the lives you touch, the hands you hold, the names you remember, the dignity you protect. She spent 17 years feeding strangers because she understood something most billionaires never learn. That every person has a story worth knowing. That every life has value beyond its economic output. That grace is not something you earn. It is something you give. And when you give it freely, without expecting anything in return, it comes back to you in ways you never imagined. As homes, as family, as belonging, as peace. Keanu Reeves stood in a community he helped destroy and then helped rebuild. And he finally understood the lesson Maggie had been teaching him for 46 years. The people who serve you are not invisible. They are not background noise. They are heroes and mothers and veterans and dreamers. They have medals on their walls and children they have buried and hopes they have deferred. They have stories that would break your heart and wisdom that could save your soul. If only you would ask. If only you would see. If only you would remember that the coffee does not make itself. That the soup does not cook itself. That every act of service is an act of love, and love deserves to be seen. So this is the question this story leaves with you. Who have you been blind to? Who has served you faithfully while you never asked their name? Who has loved you from the shadows while you basked in the light? Find them. See them. Ask them their story. Because you might discover that the person you thought was invisible is actually a hero, and the grace you have been searching for has been standing right beside you all along, waiting for you to open your eyes, waiting for you to come down from your tower, waiting for you to finally see. Thank you for following this story. Let us know in the comments below if this story has moved you and you would like to stand with us in bringing more voices of truth and hope to light. Please consider supporting our work. Even the smallest gift helps us continue creating and sharing these powerful stories. You can find the donate link in the description. And of course, do not forget to subscribe so you will not miss the next chapter we are preparing for you.